Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Canada is now set for a snap election, so who are the leading candidates? And would you believe me if I told you that President Putin prayed for President Trump after the assassination attempt? Okay, let's get into it. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called a snap election for April 28th. This election is taking place against the backdrop of an impending trade war between Canada and the United States. President Trump has repeatedly said that Canada should become the 51st U.S. state, and President Trump acknowledged on Friday that he has totally upended Canadian politics, and he actually did. President Trump has become the biggest variable in the Canadian election. The election is a contest between three candidates: Mark Carney of the Liberals, Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives, and Jagmeet Singh of the New Democrats. The Liberal Party in Canada was exhausted even before President Trump announced his tariffs on Canada. The Liberals have been in power for 10 years with a myriad of criticized policies, plus endless scandals, so public opinion is yearning for change. The Conservative Party's Pierre Poilievre has been the most vocal candidate for some time, and he once led Trudeau by more than 20% in the polls. Many people, including myself, thought that he would almost certainly be the next Prime Minister of Canada, but man's plans are not as good as God's. On January 20th, President Trump was sworn in, and his whirlwind of reforms began immediately afterward, including tariffs on Canadian imports. And what irritates the pride of Canadians the most is President Trump's belief that Canada should be the 51st state of the United States. I personally don't have a strong position on this issue either way. There would be real benefits for Canadians, but many Canadians don't see it that way. To gain, they would have to lose, and they value the sovereignty and dignity of their country. They do not want to lose that. So some Canadians have switched from supporting Pierre Poilievre to the other two candidates. This may be because Poilievre bears some resemblance to President Trump. Poilievre, for example, said Canada's broken, echoing President Trump. So a poll from Angus Ray that was released earlier this week put the Liberals at 42% and the Conservatives at 37%. Another survey from CBC's Poll Tracker, which averages multiple surveys, said that the Liberals are at 37.5% and the Conservatives are at 37.1%. Warren Kinsella, Canada's leading political consultant, lawyer, and columnist, provided an in-depth reading of the campaign landscape for the leaders of the three major parties, using the classic SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's take a look at his analysis. Let's start with Mark Carney of the Liberals. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is now out of office, is still a negative asset for the Liberals. Trudeau's name is still offensive to many voters, especially male voters. So Trudeau remains an albatross for the Carney team. Kinsella claims that Carney himself has shortcomings. His response to a reporter's inquiry about his personal assets last week, for example, was arrogant. And his multinational resume feels somewhat out of touch with Canadian values. But then again, Carney himself is the Liberal Party's greatest internal strength. Even though he looks like a boring banker, that has just become his strength in dealing with President Trump. Carney also exhibits calm and predictability, and this is especially favored by female voters. Poilievre, the Conservative leader, has his own advantages. He has more candidates, more money, and stronger grassroots organizing skills. He is a disciplined politician who has spent almost his entire life preparing for this moment. And his advocacy is in line with the majority of Canadians. In the long run, his policies are also in the best interest of Canada. But his biggest variable or disadvantage to some is that he is too much like President Trump. But there are also many silent Trump supporters within the Conservative Party. Therefore, more and more Canadians are suspecting that the Conservative Party is a northern division of Trump fans. Rationally, it would be good if Conservatives could lead Canada back to tradition. But very often, people are not rational in making decisions, and they are swayed by their emotions and the media. There are now only 37 days until the last day of voting in Canada, so will the Canadian people be able to return to a rational attitude in making a decision in such a short period of time? This is still an open question. The last candidate is Jagmeet Singh of the NDP, who is quite active on TikTok. But critics say that he has sold his party and his credibility to Trudeau. As a result, he is currently in the single digits in some polls. All in all, Poilievre is not without a chance. He is widely expected to beat Carney in the party leadership debate, and he doesn't have the baggage of governing that the Liberals do. He is the challenger. So the Liberals are the holdouts, and his role is naturally dominant. The biggest external threat to Carney is President Trump, specifically the Trump tariffs. And the new round of tariffs is expected to land on April 2nd, right in the middle of the campaign. If Carney fumbles his response and repeats Trudeau's mistakes, he will have little time to recover. Interestingly, Poilievre's biggest threat is also President Trump. Kinsella argues that President Trump is pretty much poison for the Conservative Party and every other province and territory in Canada except Alberta and Saskatchewan. But if President Trump shifts his focus, then the Conservative Party might still be able to rise from the ashes. So will there be any other events that will affect the Canadian election? Of course there will be. There have been a number of dramatic changes in Canadian politics over just the past few weeks, and everything could change again very quickly. Does anyone find it unbelievable that President Putin would pray for President Trump's safety? The news was confirmed in person by President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, in an exclusive interview on the Tucker Carlson podcast on Saturday. Witkoff stated that during his second meeting with President Putin, the Russian president recounted his reaction to the attempted assassination of President Trump last summer. Witkoff told Tucker Carlson, "When the president was shot, he went to his local church and met with his priest and prayed for the president." Witkoff made it a point to say that the move was not politically motivated because at that point in time, no one was sure if President Trump would be elected. Witkoff explained that President Putin had a friendship with him and he was praying for his friend. Witkoff also said that he had relayed the sentimental story to President Trump, who was clearly touched. Witkoff also mentioned that President Putin had a beautiful portrait commissioned that was painted of President Trump by a top Russian artist, which President Putin gifted to President Trump. In the interview, Witkoff spoke highly of President Putin. He said that President Putin showed sincerity in his dialogue. Witkoff said, "I don't regard Putin as a bad guy." Witkoff revealed that the meeting with President Putin was constructive and focused on concrete solutions as the two sides seek to find a peaceful way out of a war that has been raging for 3 years. In another interview on Sunday, Witkoff said that he believes President Putin really seeks a peace deal and President Putin is not as ambitious as Europe worries. Witkoff said, "I simply have said that I just don't see he wants to take all of Europe." While the Europeans' concerns are based on historical factors, Witkoff believes that the world is now in a different situation. Witkoff said, "This is a much different situation than it was in World War II. In World War II, there was no NATO." Witkoff argued that outside fears of wider Russian aggression are academic. This comment he has made about President Putin is obviously very different from what we've been hearing so often in the mainstream media over the past few years.
Do you feel like there's a misconception, though, about the characterization of him as a tyrant or someone whose political opponents often disappear or die?
I think in my 68 years on this earth, I've never, ever seen a situation where there isn't two sides to a story. It's just never as black and white as people want to portray. So there are grievances on both sides, but our job, and at the direction, again, I stress, of the president, our job is to narrow the issues, bring the parties together, and stop the killing. That's the game plan.
Russian and Ukrainian negotiators held talks today in Saudi Arabia. Witkoff recognizes that there are complex historical reasons for the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, so he does not want to take a stand on this issue. Are we all familiar with the saying, if you work hard, make good grades, be in all the best programs, then you will be successful? We hear similar phrases from parents, and we repeat the same words to our own children. Anthony Mackie, the star of Captain America: Brave New World, has instead suggested that such claims are misleading to children. Mackie recently appeared on the Pivotal podcast, and he said that the saying ignores the role of luck.
And what I realized yesterday thinking about it, we're lying to our kids, dog. And I think that's a big problem in our community. We tell our kids that and this is fresh on my heart, like I literally just came to this conclusion last night. We tell our kids if they do right and they make the good grades and they go to the programs and they will become successful. If you work hard enough, your work will be paid off. And that's not true. Success is given. It's not earned. Because you can be the most brilliant. If one person don't tap you, each one of y'all. There were people who could hit harder, who could catch better, who could run faster, but somebody said, you're the one. And the other 50 behind you fell off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And Mackey's acting career bears this out. He acted for more than a decade before playing Sam Willis in 2014 in the movie Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, and this role was seen as his career breakthrough for him. Prior to that, he had been gaining experience in theater and film. He appeared in films such as the 2008 Hurt Locker. However, he failed to make a name for himself amidst stiff competition in Hollywood. He revealed that he put in about 10,000 hours of training before getting his breakthrough role. He also wrote to Marvel executives to express his interest in the role, but nothing ever came of it. But eventually, with a little luck, he got his chance. He met with the Russo brothers and he was offered a role in their new movie. Finally, he was able to move from a small role to a leading role in a major movie. And Mackey isn't the only one who values luck. Mark Cuban, a renowned investor who was sitting on a $4.1 billion fortune, told men's magazine GQ in 2023 that people who claim they can start from nothing and become billionaires on their own are often exaggerating. He believes that it's important to have the right timing and good luck. If he had been born a few years earlier, he would not have been where he is today. Obviously, luck is just as important as networking and capabilities. Charlie Munger, while speaking at the University of Michigan in 2018, also emphasized that even if you are the hardest working and best person in the room, your success is dependent on luck. It doesn't matter if you are the smartest, most talented person, success is going to those who are chosen, or in other words, the one who is lucky. Psychologist Richard Wiseman says that lucky people tend to have some of the same qualities. For example, they are optimistic even in difficult situations. People with good luck usually show openness and adaptability. They all recover quickly from setbacks. Some say that they are intuitive decision makers. So, how can we be the one who's chosen? What are the factors that determine good luck for one person and bad luck for another? In fact, the wisdom of thousands of years of ancient civilization has already provided a very thorough explanation. There's an old saying in the Western world, what goes around comes around. In Eastern countries, there is an old saying that says, good will be rewarded for good deeds and evil will be returned for evil deeds. Although the expressions are different, they both mean the same thing. That is, if you want to have good luck in the future, you have to accumulate virtue and do good deeds. But many people do not believe in the ancient wisdom anymore. This is because many good and bad karmic rewards do not appear immediately. They appear only after a longer period of time. This is why many people find it hard to believe or understand why some people are so lucky, while others end up with nothing no matter how much effort they put in. Therefore, no matter how long it takes for the results to show up, those who wish to have good fortune in the future can start by doing the right thing now to change their luck. And when educating our children while urging them to work hard, don't forget to teach them the ancient wisdom that what goes around comes around. Otherwise, as Mackey reminds us, we are misleading our children. And with all the matters developing recently, the Trump administration still has a lot to deal with. Today, in a post on Truth Social, President Trump accused Venezuela of purposefully and deceitfully sending violent gang members to the United States. President Trump wrote, Venezuela has been very hostile to the United States and the freedoms which we espouse. Therefore, any country that purchases oil and or gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a tariff of 25% to the United States on any trade they do with our country. President Trump's reciprocal tariffs also start on April 2nd, which will impact nations with sizable trade surpluses, such as South Korea, and the tariffs will bring in trillions of dollars to the country. Chung Woo-sun, the Hyundai executive chairman, who appeared alongside President Trump and Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry at the White House, unveiled a $21 billion investment in the United States.
Today, I'm pleased to announce an additional $21 billion in a new investment over the next 4 years, our largest U.S. invest ever. A key part of this commitment is our $6 billion investment to strengthen the U.S. supply chain from steel and parts to automobiles. We are especially excited about Hyundai Steel's multi-billion investment in a new facility in Louisiana, which will create 1,300 American jobs and serve as the foundation for a more self-reliant and secure automotive supply chain in the U.S. To mark this milestone, we are honored to visit President Trump alongside Governor Landry and Speaker Johnson and Leader Scalise, deepening our partnership with the United States and reinforcing our shared vision for American industrial leadership. And this week, we are also proud to open our new $8 billion auto plant in Georgia. With this, our U.S. vehicle production will exceed 1 million units per year, as President mentioned. Our decision to invest in Savannah, Georgia, creating more than 8,500 American jobs, was initiated during my meeting with President Trump in Seoul in 2019. That's right. Yeah, and after that, 2020 in Davos, I mentioned about the new plant. So American jobs was initiated during at the time. Now, as we proudly mark the completion of this transformative project, coincides with the beginning of President Trump's second term, making this moment even more special.
Thank you.
Yeah. Furthermore, HMG will purchase $3 billion worth of U.S. LNG to support America's energy industry and enhance our energy security.
And also today, $1.35 trillion was added to the U.S. stock market, and the UAE pledged a $1.4 trillion investment in the United States. President Trump also announced that he installed his personal lawyer, Alina Habba, to serve as interim U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey. Habba will replace outgoing acting U.S. Attorney John Giordano, whom President Trump said would serve as U.S. ambassador to Namibia. President Trump also promised to fully pardon Devon Archer, who was Hunter Biden's ex-business partner who turned impeachment witness against President Biden. And on Sunday, U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. promised that his agency would take on geoengineering activities in the country. All over the world, there are reports of airplanes emitting trails of unknown substances that linger in the skies above and that eventually turn the sky an unnatural misty gray, raising health and environmental concerns. RFK has vowed to stop airplanes from releasing these chemtrails. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube, so when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.